Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon and part of the MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. This is your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. Help other people find our podcast by subscribing, rating, giving us a review, or sharing on social media. Hi, everybody. I have Janet Johnson here and Maaxa here. They are the founders of the AI Governance Group based in Portland. But before launching into what the group will be doing, it would be great if you could each introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how that led you into AI. So I'll start with Janet, please.
Thank you, Amy. Janet Johnson here. I have been in technology since 1984, the year of the Mac. I started my career back in the day when I discovered I was a bridge between engineers and regular people who spoke a plain language, and have been here ever since. And the reason that I'm here and excited about this today is that I went through the first tech transformation, the huge one around social media, and helping companies really understand how to leverage it and do it safely. And I see this coming AI tech transformation to make that look like child's play, frankly. So that's my point of view and why I'm excited to be alive right now, frankly.
Oh, well, thank you for making it sound not so hard. Okay, Allie, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Amy. Hi, everybody. I am Maaxa. I am an anthropologist, so I have a background in academic anthropology and did lots of work on global digital media makers and users. So I did a lot of work in the US South and in West Africa, and looked at the way that young people in West Africa sort of remake and re-engineer technologies to suit their communities, their needs, their values, and their cultures. So many years later, after teaching anthropology at a number of universities, and I am still affiliated with Portland State University and occasionally teach classes there, I've been working in tech and particularly doing research for AI labs. And the person, I like to say that my highly technical skill is understanding humans, really bringing that human-computer interaction, the human part of that, into that space and understanding how these technologies actually transform our lives and what it's like for people who make and use these technologies to do them, and what their thought processes are like, what tools they replace, what possibilities they open up, all toward bending the arc, toward opening up this technology for all and making it more responsible, ethical, and full of possibility.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So first, let's look into AI. I mean, is it even a thing? And I just laugh because I know it is, right? And so many people are talking about it. But first, is it really coming? And what should we look out for?
Can I just jump in here and say that it is already here? It's been here in many forms for many, many years. Every time we ask Siri a question or, Alexa, anytime we have an autocorrect on an email or a suggestion in a Google search, we are using AI. But in the last 6 months or so, that's really when the lid kind of got blown off with the introduction to public, the notion of this tool called ChatGPT, which is a large language model that basically has taken at least press by storm. Because it is being kind of beta tested and tuned in the public domain right now. And so that's why I think we've seen so much press around the notion of AI. Allie, I'm exhausted reading all about AI, new stuff and et cetera. But it's been around for a long time, and it's just kind of exploded into the public domain via mostly around the notion of ChatGPT and that kind of large language model tool. Mm-hmm. Do you agree, Allie?
Agreed completely. It's been going on for a long time. And before AI, we were using machine learning to make decisions. And before that, we were using statistics. So we've used lots of different ways to sort of try to understand big questions and wrap our heads around the data necessary to sort of solve them or approach them or make decisions within them. So this is sort of the new end of a very long pathway we're on here.
And it's never ending, because I just want to circle back to something you said, Allie, that, and maybe I misunderstood, but you were talking about humans and the human aspect, and you kind of likened the human to technology. And I just want to follow up and say, are humans even more technical than tech?
As an anthropologist, I would say absolutely. There's no more complex machine that we know of than the human mind, except for a group of diverse human minds working together. And that comes from an anthropology of innovation and a writer named Ulf Honnertz, who's an anthropologist who thinks about the idea that, we, in order to understand something in an embodied way, to understand change, to understand emotion and bodies and the way that they regulate themselves and each other through space, it takes something like the complexity of a human mind. So yeah, I think that's the most complex thing out there.
Okay, and I want to follow up on something that Janet said, but before I do that, can you just tell people really what does embodied mean? Because I hear about embodied more in like a psychological kind of aspect when you're looking at possibly therapy or even just like movement and how to use your body. What do you mean in this sense of embodiment? And a follow-up question to that is, can AI ever be embodied?
From where I sit, it does, I'm in the social sciences just like a psychologist would be, right? And to be embodied is to affect or be affected by the world, or ways of knowing around those affects that are not textual, that can't necessarily be put into texts or numbers or statistics. And that is the thing that AI has a very hard time reaching, because it draws from data sets. It, compiles lots and lots of texts and finds patterns in them, and it calculates numbers. Well, there are all these different ways we understand, because we are, we live in bodies of the world working, that can never quite be quantified in that way or textualized in that way. And that's the embodied part, right? That thing that sort of rises above what can be said in words or measured in numbers. And I think that's the game that we have as humans in all of this. And I think that as the algorithms, neural networks, for instance, become closer and closer to the way human brains work, and the ways that they relate to new inputs of information, like our sensory bodies allow us, that it will come closer to that. In my mind, they will never be one and the same. And in my mind, they will never fully merge. If they were to, it would be very far in the future. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. And so if they were to merge, that would be so literally, I just saw a headline somewhere that AI is coming to take over the world. Okay. So would they need to merge in that case? Then that would be that AI is embodied, A, and then B, do you mean, so when you talk about AI being embodied, is this kind of what people mean when they say ChatGPT? Oh, sure, it's great for writing a little bit, but it doesn't have any context, meaning like it's just going to spit out whatever you ask, but it doesn't know, there's no context there, if you understand what I mean. Are those all kind of the same thing?
I think those are really good questions. And I can bounce this over to Janet, having her, roots in the social media revolution, right? That these AI is just a series of tools that humans can use. And that we could build out, a neural network that could understand more of that context. But by the time we build all of that out, we have become really inefficient with our AI, and we might as well just do it ourselves as humans. So that's part of the problem, is that there's always going to be that divide. But Janet might be able to tell us a little bit more from her perspective at the dawn of social media. What happens when these technologies that folks think are going to take over humanity, our ways of relating to each other, for instance, and don't quite ever make it, and again, reduce themselves to tools in our arsenal.
Well, thank you, Allie. I will say you just nailed it. It changes what social media has done over the last 20 years has changed the way we relate to each other. I will posit that for sure because, we no longer have control over whether or not we verify truth in the world. There is, this whole notion of fake news. There's a whole notion of deep fakes in terms of who is real, what is real. Folks who, are influencers without putting ads in their spaces. We have created a world using social media that has led to, and our friend Kathy Longholland, who's also part of the AIGG group, has said truth has become absolutely hard to tell anymore. And that, I will say, is a result of the social media revolution. I would offer up, if anyone disagrees with me, I would love to hear it. But 20 years ago when we started with social media, we had no idea that it would turn out 20 years later that we would be in a polarized world today because people don't trust who's behind news anymore.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Do
frightening.
You agree, disagree? Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say for PR people and news people, because that all works together, that is frightening. But I just to kind of back up. So you are saying that AI essentially is the possibly, you didn't number them, but maybe the third or fourth wave of the change in either the digital world or the world. And so this might, and when I talk about, when I number the changes, I've heard it's, first it was email, then it was the internet, just the basic internet, then social, and now there's this. And so honestly, could this even be bigger than any of those?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think so. And Allie, I don't know if you agree or disagree with me, but I think this is the way I see it. I think this is just going to dwarf everything else.
I agree. I often say I feel like someone who helped make the tools that the pyramid builders used to build the pyramids, right? That Janet and I are here in the trenches trying to generate tools that organizations can use, including PR teams, to sort of harness this new technology that's really an entirely new landscape. The difference between the pyramids and AI is the globalization element and the sheer scale of it. This is much bigger than that. So yeah, I agree completely. I think this is, it's already completely global. It's already found on the devices of basically almost everyone in the world. It's touching upon their data. It's collecting data from them. So in that sense, I do think the scale and the scope of it is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how do we, first of all, let's go. I do want to hear, Allie, I want you to, in a second, talk about tools, like what you mean and what you're doing with that. But first, okay, Janet, you mentioned, oh my God, we don't even know what's real. Not only is there fake news, okay, now I just got a video from somebody who said, hey, I can help you send videos like this using AI because I didn't even record this video. I had AI record this video. So not only is there fake news, we don't even know who's real. And that's what you mean. So now the name of your group is AI Governance Group. So where does the governance come in and what are we looking for with that?
Can I start just by saying a deeper understanding of what makes these tools work? The responsible use of these tools, because they are powerful and we want to be, we're not against these kinds of tools. I mean, they're inevitable, but education, understanding, risk mitigation, the governance part is really finding ways to help organizations, and we're specifically focused on business. There are a lot of other organizations focused on the people who are developing the tools, technologists, et cetera. And then there's the government entities that are working on laws and that kind of thing. But what we're doing are things like helping people understand the possibilities, the potential pitfalls, but also the responsible use of these tools, and most specifically, really around creating strategies and then employing tactics and employing things like HR handbook policies that will help employees really understand how these tools will help them in their work. And the kinds of things, and Allie, you'll talk a little bit, I believe, about Marshall McLuhan and why we're developing the tools we are. But what will AI replace? What will it enhance, et cetera? And with that, I'm going to throw it over to you, Allie, and have you give your Marshall McLuhan insights, because I think they're brilliant, actually.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah. And it's, the McLuhan work. And for those of you who haven't encountered Marshall McLuhan's work, he was a media theorist, a philosopher, who studied the way that different technologies basically revolutionized the world. And he looks back, he wrote a lot about TV and the TV age, and he was most active in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, writing about the dawn of television and how it's changed the way people across the world relate to each other. But he also wrote about the printing press in the 15th century and how the generation of the printing press meant that many, many Bibles could be made, and that distributing these Bibles that basically distributed Christianity globally were essential to modernity. It's often said that was the dawn of modernity, or that was essential to, globalization. So how does that, So how does that relate to AI? We can look at the internet as a technology that is at least on par with, if not much bigger than the printing press was at its time. Writing already existed and telecommunications already existed before the internet, right? But now, we look at AI and go, this is a whole different way of knowing, a whole different way of relating to information. It's widespread, global, it's ubiquitous. What kinds of changes will it entail when we look at, sailing all over the world and, distributing North Atlantic modernity was the outcome of the printing press. Well, what can we expect from AI? And it's funny, I've been harping on this for a while and thinking about, looking back at Marshall McLuhan's media theory, and that's precisely asking those questions. What does this technology enable? What does it foreclose? Could it potentially foreclose our critical thinking, our embodied thinking, our embodied ways of relating around solving problems or answering questions or making decisions? What kinds of technologies does it amplify? What cultural values does it amplify? In which does it actually shut down? And Janet and I sat down, and the rest of our group, and thought about how can we draw from these previous ways of understanding the social sciences, of understanding, world history, to understand how AI itself might not just change the world, but how it might change your organization, how it might change your team. So how can we use these established frameworks in understanding technology and apply that to AI? And it's really funny because I've been harping on the Marshall McLuhan connection for some time. And then Bill Gates just testified in front of Congress 2 days ago. AI is just like the invention of the printing press. And I was like, exactly. I think he's been listening into our calls.
So yeah, there is a lot here. I mean, I could just go. So first, so I heard the word pitfalls and then responsible uses from Janet, but then I also heard from Allie that it might change the way in which we relate to information. Now, my issue with that is like, does that mean we're not going to believe a lot of the information that we see?
Yes.
Since it's a robot. So what, and then that comes back into, and I guess governance isn't quite the word. You are helping people understand how to use it. And I just want to add, you said something about an HR policy. Well, PR teams could also use maybe communication policies, like when to use AI and like what to do after you've written something with AI, how to fact check it. But anyway, that was just a whole random statement. I just don't know.
Well, You're thinking about it exactly the right way, and exactly why we've come into play here, Amy. Uh, just last week there was a photo that kind of went wild on social media that showed what purported to be a bomb going off at the Pentagon. And while a lot of folks picked it up and passed it around, the S&P 500 dropped, I think, about 0.3%, which was $500 billion worth of money went away in that moment, and then came back once people started to say, no, this has been created by a tool that showed, and very quickly showed something that, wasn't the Pentagon under attack. But it's that kind of thing that can move markets. It can be false. It certainly moves through social media quickly. And so questioning what is true, what is not true. And I don't want to sound like, the tinfoil hat person. Oftentimes I play that role these days, unfortunately, but we have to use our critical thinking skills like we never have before as we use these tools, and prepare ourselves and our employees to use these tools so that you don't get set up for a mess. PR pros, I'll tell you guys, you have to hone your crisis communication skills now, because that's where I see PR, having a huge opportunity ahead. And unfortunately, it's because you're going to be helping companies clean up messes after themselves. And those cases are, in the news all the time. So, it's a huge opportunity for PR, especially crisis communications folks. And PR has always been in the middle of this. PR has been in the middle of social. It's been in the middle of, the internet at first. You're going to have huge opportunities as PR people. It's not going to take your job as long as you understand it and understand the implications and have deep critical thinking skills, all on. And, that's what's going to help. You are professional communicators. You know exactly how to help your clients and exactly how to help yourselves. So let's start sharpening those skills. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it sounds like we as PR people, it's more than just, use ChatGPT to write a little press release. Well, first of all, press releases are dead anyway. But so now you're saying, okay, so I get it. So on the comms, the crisis perspective, if something is surfacing, we just need to look into it and find out if it's real or not, first of all. And so we might need to be honing our research skills. And so how do we, and I think Allie has a really big background in research. How can we do that? How can we learn how to kind of sniff out if something's real first? It's like we need the facts first, and then we can create the messaging around them.
Yeah, one of the reasons these tech leaders and AI leaders have been in Congress calling for a slowdown and checks and balances on AI development is not because they don't have a vested interest in developing as much AI as possible that does as many amazing tricks as it could be. It's because they have this concern about, we as AI develops, we also develop AI checks and balances on itself. So we have technologies that can sniff out whether a video is a deep fake, whether a recording is, made from whole cloth, whether an article is true, whether a photo actually is of the Pentagon or somewhere else and has been, generated in the cloud. So that we actually develop our own skills for harnessing and handling the technology, much as we are with social media. And I would argue that maybe there's been a little bit more of a delay on the checks and balances on social media than we would like. What we're calling for here with AI is, hey, let's develop our ways of understanding, of knowing, of harnessing, and of measuring and monitoring AI. And again, that's what we could do with more AI technology, or we could do it with the kind of frameworks we're developing in the AI governance group, which looks at the end-to-end AI adoption process and maturity process and says, hey, here are places where you in your org and your colleagues can have a sort of a conversation, or you can set a strategic value statement here, or you can apply this tool here to understand whether this is actually affecting your readers or customers or audience and the way you intend it to. And so those tools that we develop for AI are both highly technological to sort of match the AI, but they're also social. They're also frameworks. It's also, ways of having conversations and thinking and setting values and thinking things through. And those are really hard to do, I think, Amy, when AI feels so out of reach to those of us who are not highly technical programmers. And so it becomes hard for us to sort of wrap our heads around it and feel like we can have agency. So we feel really reactive instead of proactive. So Janet and I are in the lab and our group every day making tools that organizations can use to feel like, hey, I can wrap my head around this. I don't know how to actually, develop an AI application, but I know how to bring it into my company and make sure that it's behaving the way I expect it to, and that I have governance over it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And so PR people or just communicators or just anybody who's not really in tech can kind of act as the intermediary between the developers and then the user possibly, or the affected party. And so can one of you talk about the tools that you're developing and how you are or will be helping companies? And maybe some various examples if you have any. Yeah, I know you guys are new, so.
Thank you.
Why don't you start, Janet?
Yeah, I'll jump in here and just say that, and I'm going to steal a little bit of Allie's thunder, but she's been doing so many frameworks for use of technology over her time in tech, as have I. And so basically what we've done is taken what we call the Strategic AI Adoption Framework, or SAFE, and we have plotted across an organization from the IT department to the the C-suite, through marketing, through sales, through operations, etc. A framework for adoption, and what that basically takes is awareness of where AI is coming into the org. Education around how it's going to be used, what are its data sources, how are we going to, handle changing data sources, what is truth in data to us, those kinds of things. And we go across the organization and we help organizations really deeply understand where these tools are going to be coming in, how to implement them. We will help them select tools if need be. And at the same time, we're creating playbooks. We're creating context and education around how to do more critical thinking, how to engage with each other. I don't know, Amy, if you have ever had a lot of lengthy conversations with attorneys around an adoption of a technology, but that's the kind of thing we're going to have here. And we have attorneys on our team who are saying, you know what, we need to be involved so that we can understand the risks and help employees, especially around these new tools, to understand what the risks and rewards are. So that's really where we are. We're creating this framework and playbooks, education. I'm going to ask Allie to speak a little bit to the assessment part and the workshop part of what we're doing. But we see this as a new way of doing business across an organization. We're going to need connective tissue like we've never needed it before, which is both an opportunity for everyone to become more aware of and involved with building a business. And with these new tools, it can happen much more quickly than we ever thought it could before. So, Allie, do you want to pipe up and pitch in here? Anything else?
That's right. Yeah, that connective tissue you talk about, Janet, that's exactly what Bill Gates is calling for, right? And that's what I'm calling for. When the printing press was invented and the Bibles were distributed all over the world, guess what arose with it? Literacy. So if AI
Yeah.
is doing a lot of the toil, a lot of the grunt work about, planning our, let's say, inventories on the shop floor, or making decisions around, which users to target with what advertising, or, what all of the things, or how to compose a book. Um, that along with that comes not just the literacy, which is something that we're trying to raise, but it is systems. Now we need schools to teach folks how to read, right? To go along with the new literacies that come from the printing press. Well, what are we doing now? We are using our framework to assess and understand what is actually going on in an organization. Where is AI being used? And I betcha it's a number of different places, whether it's being used right now or it's about to be used. I promise you, all of us are encountering organizations that we work with or work in, or compete against, who are using AI. So our assessment gets to the heart of, where is AI being used? And Amy, you pointed out, maybe our PR team needs to be in conversation with our devs. Absolutely. Our framework says, where are the devs doing their work? What kinds of decisions are they making? Where would someone like a PR leader be doing her work? What kinds of decisions is she making? How can we align these? You look at our framework and say, these are the questions that need to be asked around the data that's being used. These are the communications that need to be bubbled up to PR from those devs. So our assessment goes through, it just takes, I don't know, a half an hour or so on the part of leaders throughout an organization to fill out, so we can take a look and say, okay, well, this is what's going on with you in your industry, in your vertical, in your organization size, in your market. And these are some of the issues you may be raising. Then we move into a strategic value statement, where we say, what does your company want to represent? What does your organization represent? What's important to you? Is it a, nonprofit educational institution? Is it a high-tech software as a service company? What does that look like in terms of the ways that you approach and use AI? Then we do a workshop with all of these stakeholders to get them aligned. This is basically our literacy raising and our connective tissue building. And we walk through step by step, segment by segment, what does the journey to AI maturity look like across your organization? And where can those conversations happen? Where can those checks and balances be used? Where can our group recommend certain technologies that can actually put some data to some of these conversations and decisions and values that you have in play? And then we make a series of recommendations and offer the tools needed to get those organizations AI ready, AI mature, and proactive about future developments. Because what we're seeing is often these organizations are adopting things, PR teams are adopting things and don't have those checks and balances in place and feel precarious, feel unready and unharnessed. So we basically put it all in perspective for you and give you the tools you need to move forward in a more strategic and proactive way.
Okay, I love this. First of all, so many things. First of all, this is very helpful because it's actual advice we can take rather than, just try out ChatGPT, or like I said, just write a press release. It's no, it's more than that. And here's the thing. This is a huge opportunity for PR people who are always fighting for a seat at the table, because what always happens is decision makers make decisions, and then we are called in to either fix the decision through a crisis plan, or we're stuck with whatever decision they made, right? And we have to PR it. Now, here is where we can bring everybody together and serve as possibly the connective tissue. Because as you mentioned lawyers and this and that, it's like, no, if AI is going to actually take over the world, that means all jobs are going to be affected and using AI. And so I think what you are really is the connective tissue, actually. And then the PR person can possibly introduce the group as, and honestly, for me, I practice proactive crisis communication. So what that is I don't play defense. Like, if you're going to call me with a problem, I don't have time to work on it because
Right? Yes.
also I have other clients, and so I have to serve them. So my way of doing proactive crisis is working with ethical clients, but also that we just don't get in trouble. I don't have any problems, right? But it's
There you
also
go.
because
Yeah.
we do the due diligence. And so like right now is the time to start looking at this years ahead of when maybe an issue could come up. And then you just actually might not even have the crisis. And you might wonder, well, what was the big deal? Well, at least you can sleep at night. you know?
Right.
So I guess my follow-up question to that whole monologue is how can people, so first of all, to clarify, are you kind of consulting with companies and kind of customizing like the various frameworks you put together and playbooks? And how does
Yes.
all that work?
Yes and yes. The framework is open. Allie is brilliant in setting something that will work for any organization. We do see some organizations coming after this a little bit more quickly. Healthcare is all over the use of AI. So think about that for a minute as an area where AI will be very helpful, but also can pose some challenges for healthcare organizations or their patients, right? So we do have a very flexible, safe framework, but we also are coming together we have playbook tools, actually HR handbooks for those kinds of companies who just want to prohibit for a while any use of AI in their organization. We've got that policy all ready to go. And we also have a more one where people who are in organizations who are going to adopt AI tools can implement this HR policy right into their handbook after their legal team takes a look at it. And they can at least drop it into an employee handbook to give employees an idea of how to use these tools. I don't know if you remember when email first came out, there had to be a whole new email policy put into everybody's employee handbook that said, be very careful what you write because it's going to go out and it can be, don't ever expose company secrets, et cetera, et cetera. Social media, the same thing. There's social media policies. What you say in social media does not reflect what the company says. And you'll see those kinds of disclaimers all over the place. Now we need employee handbook policies around responsible use of AI. We have those ready to go. We have the framework ready to go. We have the people ready to come into the organization from, Allie, myself. We've got attorneys, as I've said, other anthropologists who are not on this call who are very experienced and great at what they do. So it is rather market agnostic. It's a business-centric view of how to responsibly use these solutions.
Yeah,
Because
this is so
we love the
exciting.
tools.
I
Thank
just
you.
love it. It's so exciting. It really provides people with a real action step with this rather than being worried about it, which when I saw Allie present at the SCM PDX event, Allie, you were so positive about all of this, even though, and not everybody was positive about just AI in general. And just to look at it as in a positive light, because it is inevitable, we really can harness it to whatever it may be, to the betterment of the world. If you want to compare it to literacy. So anyway, I'll just end with just clarifying. So you're actively working with companies right now, just to.
Yeah, we actually are talking to quite a few of them right now. Nobody has pulled, to be really honest, nobody's pulled the trigger yet because, as you mentioned at the very beginning of this, Amy, this is all brand new. We're like 6 months into this, this process. So in those 6 months, what we have now is a dedicated framework. We've got some policies, and we're actually really looking forward to our first client.
And you're ready. You're ready to go. Just like I was saying with the crisis, it's like, no, we prepare first and then we work on it. So yeah,
that's right.
Or we don't have that crisis anyway. Okay. So yeah, how can people find you?
Well, both of us are really active on LinkedIn, but mostly you can go to aigovernance.group. That's our URL. There's a quick little connect with us contact form right there, and we're there, and we'll drop the LinkedIn content for you as you so that you have it, Amy, for your listeners.
And
so
we'll link to it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much. But we're out there. It's early times, but boy, are we excited about harnessing the passions of the people who are going to be using these technologies. And I hope you hear that in our voices. Truly.
Oh, yes. And I feel like it's about feeling comfortable and being confident. And so rather than being worried or being a naysayer, let's just feel comfortable. And
That's
honestly,
right.
and we've heard this before, education is empowerment. So we can start with that.
Yeah.
So, well,
anything
thank you
to add, Allie?
No, I mean, we're here for the education part. This this tooling, these products that we've built are ready to rock. And I'm really excited. It looks like we may have an opportunity in healthcare developing. I'm really excited for us to hit the ground running. I think Portland's a great place for this kind of work to get started because we have so many folks in the SaaS industry, so many people working in healthcare, people in manufacturing and shipping. So there's all of these diverse uses of AI happening around us. And I'm just thrilled to be working with Janet and the team. I don't know. I think there's something to working across experiences in tech and in industry as well. So we have this really diverse team of folks who are thinking in really interesting ways. And Amy, I love the idea of, look, how do we approach this from a PR standpoint? Always with the proactivity. So even what you've said here is something that I intend to integrate into the work we do. So I'm thrilled to be here and can't wait to meet more folks who are thinking about not only AI and PR, but how AI could affect their organizations and their clients.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
thank you.
Can I add, Amy, you're doing a service, a huge service to your listeners right now by having these kinds of conversations. Thank you for doing
thank
so.
you.
Truly. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's this is how I learn too, is through conversation. And so we can all learn together and get better together. So thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more PR insight, be sure to check out Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, at prtalk.co. Also, please subscribe, rate, or leave us a review.